Did you know that 85% of people over 70 say their biggest regret isn't the things they did, but the wisdom they gained too late? Think about it for a second. Medicine can give you more years, but can it truly teach you how to fill those years with meaning, joy, and inner peace? Have you ever wondered what secrets older, happier, and healthier people hold inside their hearts? Why is it that some people, after 70, radiate calmness and serenity, while others struggle with regret and loneliness? What do these wise souls know that you haven't yet discovered? Today, I promise you'll learn three profound insights, wisdom that medicine can't prescribe, that will gently transform your later years, bringing peace to your heart and clarity to your mind. But before we dive deeply into these lessons, take a quiet moment and ask yourself, at this stage of your life, what wisdom truly matters most to you? If you're ready to find the answer, open your heart, settle your mind, and come with me on this meaningful journey. Let's explore these beautiful life lessons together, right now. Lesson 1. Letting go heals the heart. Why does holding on always seem easier, yet cause more pain than simply letting go? Let me tell you something surprising. The things we cling to most tightly often weigh us down the heaviest. I learned this truth vividly in my years studying Buddhist philosophy. You see, our hearts, like our homes, tend to accumulate clutter, emotional clutter, I mean. And just like a crowded attic, the more you keep storing up resentment, sadness, regrets, and memories of past hurt, the heavier life becomes. Here's a simple yet profound Zen story that changed my own life, and I think it'll change yours too. A young monk once approached his master, complaining bitterly about the burdens of life. The master calmly handed him a large stone, saying, "Carry this with you all day, never setting it down." Confused but obedient, the monk did as instructed. As the hours passed, the stone felt heavier and heavier until finally exhausted, he returned to his master and pleaded, "Teacher, why must I carry this stone?" The master gently replied, "Exactly, why must you carry this stone?" Just like that stone, we each carry emotional burdens day after day, without realizing how unnecessary and painful they truly are. From the perspective of our emotional well-being, holding on to anger, resentment, or sadness creates hidden stress. This emotional tension quietly drains our life force, causing anxiety and weakening our immune system. Have you noticed how the happiest people you meet are often those who freely forgive and easily move on? It's not magic, it's the natural consequence of releasing emotional baggage. When you choose to let go of hurtful memories, you create space within your heart for peace and joy to naturally flow in. I understand, it's easier said than done. I once held tightly onto anger after a betrayal by a close friend. It felt justified, comforting even. But as months passed, I found myself exhausted, weighed down, and honestly, no happier. It wasn't until I chose to consciously release that anger, truly forgive, that I felt an incredible shift in my life. Ironically, forgiveness didn't heal my friend, it healed me. Here's the gentle twist. The law of life shows us clearly that what you release, releases you. Letting go doesn't mean giving up. It means gaining freedom. Think about it. The universe subtly responds to your emotional vibrations. Clinging to bitterness attracts more bitterness. Embracing forgiveness, however, attracts healing, joy, and inner peace. It's like gardening. Pulling out emotional weeds allows beautiful flowers of joy to bloom effortlessly. Imagine your heart as a river. When it's blocked by debris, the water stagnates. But when you remove those obstacles, clear, fresh energy begins to flow again. So ask yourself sincerely, what heavy stone am I still holding on to today? Maybe it's an old grudge, a painful memory, or regrets about missed opportunities. Why not set it down just for today and see how your heart feels? And if you're worried about missing out on the secret to lifelong happiness, let me assure you, you might just discover that secret by letting go. Wouldn't it be funny if the thing you've been holding on to so tightly was exactly what's been blocking your happiness all along? So here's my gentle challenge to you. Quietly reflect on one emotional stone you're ready to release. Trust me, your heart will thank you. But what about solitude? Could spending more time alone actually make your life richer? Let's explore that intriguing lesson next. Lesson 2. Solitude reveals true self. What if your greatest teacher after 70 was the person staring back at you in the mirror when you're alone? You know, a beautiful Buddhist saying that deeply touched my heart when I first heard it. In silence, the soul speaks. After 20 years exploring Buddhist teachings, I've realized the profound wisdom hidden in solitude, especially later in life. And it's a lesson you won't hear in any doctor's office. Let me share a short yet unforgettable Zen story. A young monk once sought enlightenment through endless travel, wandering from temple to temple, teacher to teacher. Frustrated, he finally retreated alone to a quiet hut deep in the forest. Initially, silence felt uncomfortable, even frightening. Yet slowly, surrounded only by nature and his thoughts, he discovered something astonishing. The wisdom he searched for had been quietly waiting inside him all along. Now, I'm not suggesting you pack up and move into the woods tomorrow, though wouldn't that shock your grandkids? But here's a surprising twist. Research quietly affirms what Zen masters have known for centuries. Moments spent alone are scientifically proven to calm the mind, reduce anxiety, and even strengthen your emotional resilience. Imagine solitude as gentle rain washing away the dust from your heart, revealing clarity and insight beneath. I used to fear silence. Maybe you felt that way too. Filling quiet spaces with television, chatter, or chores to avoid being alone with your thoughts. But here's the truth I've discovered. Solitude isn't loneliness. It's the space where your authentic self emerges, free from expectations and distractions. Think of your mind as a beautiful garden. Constantly busy lives can fill that garden with weeds of worry and cluttered thoughts. Solitude gives you the chance to gently remove those weeds, allowing your true inner beauty to blossom. It might seem counterintuitive, but by embracing quiet moments, you're inviting greater joy and peace into your life. And let's face it, how often do we truly listen to ourselves? Psychology gently reminds us that the deepest insights often arise when we pause, breathe, and just be still. You might even realize that what you truly desire in life is quite different from what you thought you wanted when life was noisier. Here's a funny truth I've learned along the way. Most of us spend half our lives looking for answers outside ourselves, and the other half realizing the answers were inside us all along. Isn't it ironic and oddly comforting? Now let me ask you honestly, what if the next meaningful conversation you have is actually with yourself? Could you be missing profound wisdom simply because you haven't allowed yourself quiet time to hear it? Here's a gentle challenge. Tonight, gift yourself a few precious minutes alone. Turn off the TV, silence your phone, and just sit. Listen to your breathing. Listen to your heart. Who knows, maybe you'll discover insights even deeper than you imagined possible. But solitude isn't the only surprising teacher life offers. Have you ever considered how forgiveness might free your heart even more than solitude? Let's explore this powerful idea together next. Lesson 3. Forgiveness is true freedom. What if the most powerful medicine for your heart is simply forgiveness? Not a pill, Not a treatment, just a soft decision to release the weight you've carried for far too long. They say forgiveness is a gift you give yourself. And after turning 70, I've come to believe this deeply. The longer we live, the more we gather. Not just memories, but emotional scars. Someone disappointed us. Someone walked away. And often, we hold that pain close, thinking it protects us, when in truth, it quietly poisons our peace. Holding on to anger is like grasping hot coal to throw it at someone. You are the one who gets burned. And oh, how true that is. Years ago, I had a dear friend, like a brother to me, who betrayed my trust in a way I never expected. At first, I felt powerful in my silence, thinking that not forgiving him was a way of staying in control. But what I didn't realize was how that anger started shaping the way I saw everything. Life felt a bit colder. Joy was harder to feel. And one day, as I was meditating, the thought came, who are you punishing here? It wasn't him. It was me. Now here's the twist no one tells you. Forgiveness doesn't mean the person deserves peace. It means you do. You're not letting them off the hook. You're setting yourself free. In the teachings of Zen, forgiveness isn't about morality. It's about clarity. When the mind is clouded by resentment, we lose our ability to see life as it is. Forgiveness clears the lens. It allows you to breathe deeply again, to laugh without tension, to love without fear. Psychologists gently affirm this too. When you forgive, your brain rewires itself. When stress hormones decrease, the body relaxes, and your emotional system becomes more stable. And the best part? You don't need years of therapy or a complicated process. Sometimes it begins with just a willingness to soften. And yes, I know, it can feel hard. We think, but they never apologized. Or, I'm still hurt. I get it, I do. But here's something that shifted everything for me. Forgiveness isn't about changing the past. It's about choosing your present. Would you rather be right or be at peace? From the law of attraction's gentle perspective, forgiveness is powerful because it aligns you with healing energy. When you release bitterness, you open a space where compassion, joy, and new love can enter. That energy, believe it or not, is magnetic. Let me lighten the mood for a moment. A friend once told me, I tried forgiving my ex, but then I remembered his haircut and got angry all over again. We laughed so hard, but even in the laughter, there's truth. Forgiveness is a practice, not a single moment. You return to it, you breathe with it, and slowly it transforms you. So today I invite you, no pressure, no expectation. Just try forgiving one small thing, a comment that hurt, a time someone didn't show up, or even a moment where you were less than kind to yourself. Notice what happens in your heart. Does it feel just a little lighter? And speaking of lightness, have you ever wondered why some people, despite everything, still radiate joy? Maybe they've learned to embrace impermanence. Let's uncover that next. Lesson 4: Impermanence teaches gratitude. If everything disappears, what is truly worth holding on to? Not a house, not a title, not even our most cherished routines. In the end, what remains? In Zen, we are often reminded of impermanence, not to frighten us, but to awaken us. There's an old parable that still lives vividly in my memory. A student once asked his master, "Why do we meditate on change?" The master gently pointed to a single flower blooming beside a rock. "This flower opens only once," he said. "By morning, the wind will carry its petals away. But if you truly saw it today, it was enough." That, my friend, is the secret. Impermanence is not loss. It is the reason to love more deeply. We often think that permanence equals safety, but ironically, it is the fleeting nature of life that gives it beauty. Imagine if the sky were always golden like sunset. Would you still pause in awe, or would you forget to look? When we recognize that a moment will pass, we instinctively cherish it more. This is the core of mindfulness. When you are present, truly present, your brain shifts, stress lowers, gratitude rises, and emotional satisfaction deepens. Multiple studies show that the simple act of noting a small, beautiful moment each day increases long-term happiness. I once worked with a woman in her 70s who had recently lost her husband. She told me, I used to rush through breakfast, but now I sit. I savor the warmth of my tea, the sound of the spoon against the cup, and in those moments I feel him, not in the past, but right here. That's not just nostalgia, that's presence, that's gratitude, that's healing. And here's the twist. Gratitude isn't just a feeling, it's a frequency. The more grateful you become, the more life responds. Little joys multiply. Peace lingers longer. Love finds its way back to you, quietly, unexpectedly. From the perspective of attraction, gratitude is like tuning your inner world to beauty, and suddenly, beauty starts finding you. Now I get it. Life at this stage isn't always easy. Maybe your joints ache more than you'd like. Maybe you've lost people or opportunities, or the mirror no longer reflects the youth you remember. But what if I told you, you haven't lost the most important thing, the ability to feel awe? Gratitude isn't grand. It's gentle. It lives in the small things, the way your pet sighs when it lies beside you, the rustle of trees outside your window, the first sip of water after a walk, and yes, sometimes you might even laugh at how ridiculous life feels. Just the other day, I spent 10 minutes looking for my reading glasses, only to find them on top of my head. In that moment, instead of being frustrated, I laughed. And strangely, that laugh felt like a tiny thank you to life for still surprising me. So here's a gentle invitation. Find one fleeting moment today and cherish it with your whole being. Let it be enough. Let it be everything. And speaking of life's fleeting nature, have you ever wondered why helping others, especially in small ways, often brings a sense of joy that lingers far longer than any material success? Let's explore that beautiful paradox next. Lesson 5: Compassion Awakens Joy. What if the most effective anti-aging secret isn't in a cream or vitamin, but in how you treat others? I know, it sounds almost too simple, doesn't it? But after over 20 years walking the path of Zen, I can tell you this: compassion softens the heart, brightens the spirit, and, believe it or not, makes us feel younger. There's a beautiful saying in Zen: true happiness comes from bringing joy to others. And it's not just poetic, it's deeply practical. Compassion doesn't just help the people around you, it quietly transforms the one offering it. Let me share a short Zen parable I once heard while training in Kyoto. A student asked the master, "How can I find happiness?" The master replied, "Go into the village and ease one person's pain." The student returned weeks later, smiling. "I eased 5, and I feel like I've just been born again." That is the secret. When we care for others, we revive something soft and alive within ourselves. Here's where it gets fascinating. Modern psychology agrees. When we express empathy and compassion, our brain releases oxytocin, the bonding hormone. This lowers stress, boosts mood, and it even supports heart health. It's like your entire being takes a deep breath of fresh air. But here's the twist. Compassion is not just for others, it's also for ourselves. So many of us are kind to everyone, Accept the person in the mirror. We forgive others but berate ourselves for aging, for slowing down, for not being who we were 10 years ago. May I gently remind you, you are still becoming, still unfolding. When we extend compassion toward others, we naturally soften toward ourselves. That inner gentleness awakens joy, and joy is youth. Joy is life moving freely through us, without resistance. I remember one winter morning, I saw my neighbor, a woman in her 80s, trying to carry 2 heavy grocery bags up the icy steps. I rushed over, took one from her hand, and she looked up, smiled, and whispered, "You remind me of my late husband." I didn't know what to say, so I just smiled back. But I'll never forget that moment. It stayed with me all day, like a little flame warming me from the inside. Compassion, you see, is contagious. The more you give, the more your life seems to respond in kind. The more you pour out, the fuller you feel. It's not depletion, it's renewal. From the lens of the law of attraction, that joy you spark in someone else ripples back to you in unexpected, beautiful ways. Now, I'm not asking you to change the world overnight. Just try this. Do one small act of compassion today, something quiet, something sincere, and then just notice how you feel. Maybe your shoulders feel lighter. Maybe you smile for no reason later in the day. That's the magic. And speaking of magic, have you ever noticed how much lighter life becomes when you stop resisting what is and simply accept things as they are? Let's explore that next, because acceptance may be the doorway to peace you've been searching for. Lesson 6. Acceptance transforms suffering. A young monk once asked his master, "When will my suffering end?" The master simply pointed to the sky and replied, "When you stop trying to rearrange the clouds." I remember the first time I heard this. I didn't fully grasp it until life began shifting beneath my feet. Aging parents, a slower body, the silence of rooms that once echoed with children's laughter. These changes weren't sudden. They were quiet, subtle, but I found myself resisting them in small, stubborn ways, wishing time would pause or even rewind. And the more I resisted, the heavier everything felt. But here's what unfolded. It wasn't the change itself that caused pain. It was my refusal to let it be. When we stop trying to control the uncontrollable, something extraordinary happens. The energy we spent fighting reality returns to us. We soften, we breathe, we begin to live again. Not in the past, not in some idealized future, but here, in this imperfect and fleeting now. From within, the mind starts to shift. You no longer see difficulty as a punishment, but as a teacher, sometimes gentle, sometimes fierce. Emotions that once overwhelmed you lose their grip. Your heart, instead of clenching, learns to stay open. There's no need to explain this with complicated words. You've likely felt it before. The calm that arrives the moment you finally say, "It is what it is." Not from defeat, but from a deeper knowing that peace doesn't come when life gets easier. It comes when you stop demanding that it be different. One evening, I sat watching the sun set through my window. I had a sore shoulder, bills to pay, and a list of unanswered calls. And yet in that moment, all I could feel was gratitude for the light, the breath, and the stillness. That moment came not because anything changed, but because I had stopped resisting it all. This is the quiet magnetism of acceptance. It changes your frequency. When you stop pushing against life, life stops pushing back. Possibilities begin to emerge where there was only frustration before. New clarity, unexpected healing, even joy. These things come not by effort, but by surrender. Acceptance is not passive. It's not giving up. It's choosing to walk through the storm without closing your heart, and sometimes with a little humor too. A friend once told me, "I've finally accepted I'll never be 6 feet tall, so I just buy bigger hats." We laughed for hours, and in that laughter I saw it, freedom from the fight. So today I invite you to accept just one small thing, a wrinkle, a slow morning, an unanswered question. Let it be what it is. Watch how your body relaxes. Notice what returns to you, perhaps peace, perhaps even joy. And from that still, accepting space, simplicity begins to call. Let's explore that next. Lesson 7, simplicity clears the mind. As we grow older, do we need more, or have we simply forgotten how peaceful less can feel? There's a well-loved Zen story about an old monk who owned only a robe, a bowl, and a walking stick. One day, a curious visitor asked him, "Master, how can you live with so little?" The monk smiled gently and replied, "I carry nothing that doesn't bring me peace." That line stayed with me for years, and the older I get, the more I understand. True freedom is not about collecting more. It's about releasing what no longer serves us. Not just objects, but obligations, noisy thoughts, and even outdated identities. We live in a world that constantly whispers, "You need more to be happy." But what if that whisper is lying? When your home is filled with unused things, when your calendar is packed with unneeded tasks, when your mind is crowded with unresolved thoughts, peace becomes harder to find. Not because it isn't there, but because it has no room to enter. I remember a period in my early 60s when my life felt cluttered. Not in the physical sense, but mentally. I was carrying too many stories, too many shoulds. One day I started letting go. A few books I would never read again. 3 old ideas I no longer believe in. One toxic relationship I had clung to out of habit, not love. And what surprised me most wasn't the space I gained, but the clarity. It was like someone had opened a window in a room I didn't know had grown stuffy. Simplifying isn't about being minimal for the sake of it. It's about returning to what matters. And what remains after you've gently removed the noise is often more beautiful than you expected. On a deeper level, when we clear space in our lives, we naturally invite ease, harmony, and alignment. This is where the inner current begins to shift. You think more clearly. You sleep better. You even start to attract more meaningful moments because you've made space for them. Think of your life like a garden. When you stop planting weeds of distraction, the flowers of presence start to bloom. And sometimes we need a little humor to balance it all. I once told a friend I was trying to simplify my digital life. "How's that going?" she asked. I replied, "I unsubscribed from 53 email lists and still managed to miss my own doctor's appointment." We laughed and I added, "Keep a calendar to my list of things that still matter." So here's a gentle invitation for today. Simplify one small area of your life. Just one. A drawer, a decision, even a single thought you no longer need. Feel the lightness it brings, that breath of space, that quiet return of joy. And from that lightness, something even more powerful begins to take root. A kind of strength that isn't loud, but deeply steady. Let's move into that next. The patient's heart. The strength is hidden in waiting. Lesson 8. Patience brings inner strength. Could it be that what feels like nothing is happening is your soul growing roots? There's a quiet Zen story I've always cherished. It tells of the bamboo plant. For years after it's planted, there is no visible growth, not even a sprout. Then, in a matter of weeks, it shoots up over 60 feet. The lesson? During those silent years, It was growing deep, unshakable roots. Patience wasn't inactivity, it was preparation. And perhaps that's what we forget most in this world of instant everything. That stillness is not stagnation, that delay is not denial, that there is strength being formed in us, right now, in the very places we feel stuck. I remember when I was waiting for a medical diagnosis once. Days stretched into weeks. It felt endless. My mind ran in circles. But one morning I simply stopped resisting. I let the unknown be unknown, and oddly something shifted. I didn't get the answer right away, but I did get something else. A kind of calm, a stillness that said, you don't need to know everything to keep living today. That's what patience is. Not just waiting, but how you wait. There's something powerful that happens to the body and mind when you stop demanding immediate answers. Cortisol levels drop. Your breathing deepens. You begin to notice more, like how the light moves across the room, or how your heartbeat gently reminds you, I'm still here. Patience in the Zen sense isn't about delay, it's about ripening. It's allowing the fruit of your life to mature on its timeline, without you constantly checking the tree. And when you do, life often surprises you in ways rushing never could. And here's the twist. The energy you emit while you're waiting shapes what you receive. If you wait in tension, you amplify lack. But if you wait in trust, even playful trust, things begin to unfold more softly. That's not superstition, that's resonance. Now, I'll be honest, I haven't always been good at this. I once tried to wait patiently for a delivery and ended up refreshing the tracking page every 5 minutes. Let's just say, enlightenment still takes practice. But with time, I've learned that patience isn't passive, it's deeply active. It's the art of receiving the moment without resistance. So I offer you this gentle thought. Today, practice patience on purpose. Not because you're forced to, but because it's a doorway to strength. Maybe it's with a loved one, maybe with yourself, maybe with a dream that's still blooming underground. And speaking of strength through quiet energy, have you ever noticed how much wisdom lives in silence itself? Let's step into that sacred space next. Lesson 9, Silence Speaks the Truth. Have you ever noticed the most honest moments in life are often wrapped in silence? A glance, a pause, a deep breath before words arrive, or don't. In Zen, silence isn't the absence of meaning, it is the meaning. There's a story about a young student who begged his master for the ultimate teaching. Instead of answering, the master simply sat and waited. Hours passed. Finally, the student asked, "Why won't you say anything?" The master smiled and whispered, "When you learn to listen without needing sound, you will finally hear." That moment changed the student forever, and it changed me too. I once spent 3 days at a silent retreat in the mountains. No phone, no books, no talking, just stillness. At first, I felt restless, even panicked, but slowly, the noise inside me settled. And then, something unexpected happened. I heard my thoughts clearly, without judgment. I felt a peace I hadn't felt in years, not because anything outside had changed, but because I had stopped interrupting the truth with noise. We underestimate how loud the world has become. Notifications, news, conversations layered on top of thoughts. But silence. Silence is where clarity returns. It's like a still lake reflecting the sky. Only when the water is calm can you truly see what's real. And here's the gentle twist. Silence isn't empty. It's full of intuition, full of signals from the heart. When you allow even a minute of intentional quiet, your body begins to shift. Breathing slows, muscles soften, The mind, like a snow globe finally at rest, reveals what's underneath the storm. From a psychological lens, silence has been shown to help regulate mood, restore cognitive energy, and even stimulate brain growth in older adults. And if we tune in carefully, we realize the soul speaks in stillness, loudly, firmly, lovingly. There's also something curious about how silence aligns with the energy of intention. When we stop filling space just to feel secure, we create room for what truly belongs to arrive. That's when clarity, healing, and even joy find us, without force. And yes, silence has a sense of humor too. I once sat next to a man on a long flight. We didn't speak a word. When we landed, he turned to me and said, "That was the best conversation I've ever had." I couldn't stop laughing. So I invite you, no pressure, no perfection, just this. Sit silently for 1 minute today. No goal, no fixing, just being. See what rises. You may be surprised by how much truth lives in that stillness. And from this quiet, clear space, we open to the most powerful truth of all. Love, the one force that heals us beyond all understanding. Let's walk into that together next. Lesson 10. Love is the ultimate healer. What if the one thing your body, mind, and soul have been craving isn't more medicine, but more love? There's a Zen teaching I hold close to my heart. Love is not something you find. It is what you are when everything else falls away. In all my years of practice, through silence, suffering, healing, and letting go, nothing has proven more potent than this truth. Love heals where logic cannot reach. We often talk about love as something soft, emotional, or even fragile. But love, when it's true, is fierce, steady, and quietly transformative. It's the hand that reaches out when the mind has no more answers. It's the presence that makes pain bearable, not by removing it, but by softening its edges. I remember when my mother fell ill late in her life. No medication seemed to lift her spirits. One day I simply sat with her in silence, held her hand and whispered, "I'm here." That was it. She smiled. Her body still ached, but her face lit up with something medicine couldn't replicate: connection. And this is where things get interesting. Love isn't just spiritual poetry, it's cellular. Quiet studies show that being deeply loved, feeling seen, supported, cared for, boosts immune response, reduces inflammation, and even prolongs life. The body responds to love like sunlight to a flower. It opens, it blooms. On a psychological level, love creates coherence. It brings the brain, heart, and nervous system into harmony. You don't need a partner or a perfect family to feel this. Even a small, sincere act of kindness can ripple through your entire being. Holding the door for someone, saying thank you with genuine warmth, smiling when you could have stayed guarded. And from the lens of attraction, love is the frequency where healing begins. The more you offer it, even quietly, the more it circles back in the most unexpected ways. Not always from others, but from within. You begin to soften. You begin to trust. You begin to glow in a way no cream, supplement, or doctor can manufacture. Now, love can be humorous too. I once told my friend that after 20 years of Buddhist practice, I finally discovered the true secret to peace: hugging your dog. She nodded and said, "Yes, but only if the dog's in the mood." Fair enough, but still, love doesn't need to be grand to be healing. So here's a gentle practice for today. Express love openly. Do not just think it, not just feel it. Say it, share it, show it. To someone, to yourself, even to a tree. If you're feeling bold, I won't judge. Trees are great listeners. Because in the end, love is not the reward. it's the medicine. As we near the end of this journey together, let's pause and gently return to what matters most. Remember the moment we spoke about letting go, how releasing the weight of old pain can open the heart to peace. Recall the quiet power of simplicity, how clearing space inside and out invites clarity and ease. And feel once more the quiet truth that love, offered freely, is the greatest medicine of all. These are not just ideas, they're daily choices, small shifts, quiet practices that ripple through every part of your life, no matter your age. So tonight or tomorrow morning, or whenever your heart feels ready, try one thing, one tiny thing. Sit in silence. Say, "I forgive you." Simplify a corner of your day. Offer love. Let that be your beginning. And if something here touched you, even just one moment, I invite you. Share your wisdom in the comments. Let someone know they're not alone. Subscribe and walk with us as part of this gentle, growing community. Because remember, this isn't the end. Your new story is only just beginning.